Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the After the Frame podcast. My name is Malik, and I am joined, as always, by.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And today we are going to be tackling Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day. We are going to be tackling Sheep Detectives and the drama, which came out a few months ago. Which one do you want to get started on?
Why don't we open with Disclosure Day since it's kind of hot off the presses?
Yeah, most recent. Yeah, are you a fan of Spielberg's work in general? I mean, he's one of the most popular directors in history, I'd say.
Yeah, big fan. Went into this one with high expectations. Between Jaws and Indiana Jones and E.T. and you know, all 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 classics directed by him.
Right. Are you in the thought that he's kind of lost it a bit recently? That he kind of was more back then 80s, like those were like his prime years, and now every time he tries to make something, Ready Player One, this movie. He also did what was it, the fourth Indiana Jones movie. What was that? Crystal Skull, that one. So yeah, are you kind of like he's fallen off a bit, or he's still got a little bit of that magic in him?
Well, it's unfortunately a tale of inconsistencies with him because I think a lot of what he's done recently has been kind of on the fence, but some of it has been really, really good. He did the Fablemans, which came out a couple years ago. He did the new West Side Story. Like I thought both of those were really, really good. Um, Ready Player One was okay. Uh, the Big Friendly Giant was mid. Um, he he's kind of. I think if you were to ask me, has he lost a step? Maybe. But it really depends on what it is that he's doing. Like I think that the Fablemans and West Side Story were a good return for him. Um, but it's not anything compared to, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Raiders of the Lost Ark, like E.T. It's not close to any of those.
Okay. Um, I'd say that this movie that we're discussing, Disclosure Day, I didn't have high hopes going into it, so maybe that's why I was not disappointed. Because I spoke to some people and they were a little let down, I guess, by the marketing and everything like that. So I guess they were expecting more. I was not let down by it, but I wasn't overly impressed by it either. How about you? How was your out of theater reaction to this one?
Well, I had high expectations and it didn't let me down too much. I wasn't expecting the next ET, but I was expecting, something kind of in the realm of, his last couple works. Cause I mean, sci-fi and thriller, like, ET, Close Encounters, like those, I went in kind of expecting that. Not necessarily to that tier of greatness, but something similar. And it let me down a little bit, um, but nothing too, like, poorly.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into it. Let's start off with the things that we enjoyed or the positives of this movie. Yeah, you can go first if you have your stuff ready.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, you know, I gave this movie a decent score, but I don't have a ton of positives or negatives. You kind of just get what you get.
Hmm.
Um, but overall, with this movie, I do think Spielberg found a way to still bring wonder and spectacle because I think the biggest strength of this movie and all his movies in general is the wow factor. And I mean, even late in his career, Spielberg can still put images on screen that feel grand, cinematic, full of wonder. And the spectacle that I got from this movie is part of the movie that reminds me why he's a master of his craft. And there is a lot of greatness in places. The movie does have strong moments to keep pulling you back in, and when it works, it really does work. You'll see big ideas, big images, and that classic sense of cinematic awe. And the movie is easy to want to love. I mean, there's honestly really something compelling at the center. And this movie, it kept coming close to fully clicking, which I'll get into with the negatives, was both exciting from the positive standpoint, but also frustrating from the negative standpoint. I just kind of wish we got more of it, but at its core, it's an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think there it's similar to in our last episode when I was talking about Masters of the Universe. I feel like it was kind of a little bit a tale of like momentum within the movie for me. So in the Masters of the Universe movie, I was talking about how that first, hour or so I was not into it, and then like I got into it. This movie like had me like I like that we were dropped right into the middle of the story. And it kind of like goes back and gives thing context within like flashbacks or exposition. So I like that aspect because it had me trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening here. And then it was weird, like I was having this you know enjoyment watching it, then it gets to the middle and it kind of lulls out, and then the big crescendo at the end with the reveal of aliens and all of that. So I thought that like the movie had like a little bit of that going on, where it was like the length. I mean, the movie is like relatively lengthy, and I just felt like in the middle there, it kind of lulled out and kind of didn't like keep my attention as much as the beginning was kind of more like rampant and like so much was happening. Characters were like moving into place and you're getting introduced to all of these things. And then in the middle, it's kind of just like, But I did enjoy the aspect, like I said, of it being you're just thrown straight into it. You don't need to have a ton of context for everything. I thought that the acting was really well done. I think that this might be my favorite Emily Blunt performance outside of like what she did in A Quiet Place. I'm not like too familiar. I mean, like obviously, she's in The Devil Wears Prada and stuff like that, but that doesn't require top tier acting. But I don't watch many of her movies, so this one was one of my favorites. I feel like she had a chance to really show her personality, and I think that I mean I didn't even know Wyatt Russell was in this movie, and I thought that their dynamic they worked off of each other pretty well because Wyatt Russell was kind of playing more of the straight man that didn't know what was going on and the skeptic. So I thought that was good, and I thought that this movie had like good comedic beats in it, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be kind of just a straight drama. Um, I also the big thing that I really enjoyed was at the end, kind of reminded me of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, and the emotion in everybody like being told that they're not alone in the universe. I feel was very well done, and the way that the film captures all of it throughout the news, um, everybody seeing it all at once, and I just thought that that was almost like cathartic and emotional towards the end that really resonated with me. And the last point I had was the quote unquote villain of the film. I like that he was not, you know, do like trying to stop them from uncovering the truth for no reason. It wasn't for this selfish thing that they're experimenting on the aliens and they're using it for weaponry or whatever. He literally was just worried that humanity could not be able to take it and it would like plunge the world into like I don't know the dark ages or something. So I enjoyed that. And then at the end, he kind of just went along with it. He's like, I lost and I guess the world's going to know now. So yeah, those are all of my like positive points of what I enjoyed.
Very fair. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed seeing Emily Blunt give a bit of a different performance, because a lot of my favorite performances from her, like, she was in Oppenheimer. She's kind of the lead in Sicario. Both great movies, but they're tonally different than this. Like, it was cool seeing her in more of a sci-fi, you know, awareness. Like, she was a weather anchor and then wanted to keep progressing, and then she found her way through being connected with these aliens. And it was it's a bit of a tonally different movie, but I enjoyed her performance.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can get into the negatives. It doesn't sound like both of us have many. So what do you have?
Yeah, I don't have a ton. It's just kind of more wishes that I think could have improved the movie. Um, I think ultimately the script of this movie kind of undercuts the spectacle you get, that from the positive standpoint, because I think the main issue is that the writing, especially as you mentioned in the center of the movie, the writing doesn't match the filmmaking. I mean, you see Spielberg putting wonder on screen, but the script, from my understanding, like didn't always give that wonder enough emotional or narrative support to kind of balance it out. And with that, I thought a lot of the characters in the movie felt underbaked. I think that the people in the story are a little thin. I would have liked to see more, but this movie's already long enough as it is. But for a movie built on spectacle, you still need characters strong enough to make the big moments matter. And like, it could be good that you kind of get thrown in and you don't have any prior context or association with these characters, you're just following them. Um, you get a bit of backstory from the main characters, but not much else outside of them. And then the story, you made a good point kind of with the story because it didn't fully hold me, and it was kind of like a back and forth pattern. Every time that the movie hooked me, it let me slip away again, and then it hooked again, and it just let me slip. Uh, I think that inconsistency keeps it from becoming as immersive or powerful as it could have been. Um, Overall, like I think this film has a mix of great and then a mix of just okay. And the movie as a whole was honestly frustrating to me because the highs are genuinely high, but the weaker stretches as you go in kind of this dry spell, they keep interrupting the momentum and prevented it from becoming something truly special, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement here on a lot of points. You brought up something interesting, and I felt that I don't know if it's harsh to say. I felt like Coleman Domingo was a little wasted in this movie or in this role. I guess he did well for what he was given, but I felt like his character, like you mentioned, they could have done a better job of fleshing him out a little bit more. And you see him in glimpses of him being like this character that seems to have a bigger context to what's going on than the audience or even than the main characters, but he's not sharing the knowledge, and he's basically acting like a secret agent where it's like, oh, you have to like burn your phone after you talk to him and whatnot. So I thought that all of that was a little strange, and like I had already mentioned, in the middle for me, I think they could have cut out some of the scenes where it was basically just everybody just chasing after one person and like a bunch of chase scenes, and this person's going here and they're trying to locate. Like they could have done that in like one or two scenes, but I feel like they kind of stretched it into multiple scenes of like we already kind of get it that they're coming after them. They're trying to get, the device that the aliens have, and it could have definitely have been brought down a little bit more and then given more time to the greater context of the story. And then my last point was that I felt like in the big reveal at the end, it kind of felt almost like the aliens were like they were from a different movie. So I would have actually enjoyed more if he employed the tactic he used in Jaws, where like you don't really get to see much of the shark. It's more of what you're imagining underneath the water, and you're just not really understanding what's happening. I'm fine with them revealing the aliens in the end, but the scene of them going to Emily Blunt's like remade house, and then she evokes like memories of meeting these aliens in the past and all that whole scene kind of took me out of the movie, and it felt like a completely different thing from the first 70-60% that we were already experiencing. So I felt that that was a little bit jarring. But like you said, like I don't there was nothing in particular I was like, oh, that like that just sucked. It was like highs and then there were like mids. So I think you put that perfectly. So those are all of the negative points I had.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. It's made very well. But yeah, it's just got highs and lows.
Yeah. What did you give Disclosure Day?
I gave it a 7.9 out of 10, which for me is 3.5 stars.
Okay, we're in the same boat. I also gave it 3.5 stars. I was teetering on 3 to 3.5, but the ending really was well done in my opinion. So I gave it the 3.5 out of 5. Anything else you wanted to mention on Disclosure Day before we move on to the next film?
No, I mean, I guess to close out, like, if you're a fan of Spielberg or sci-fi, anything. I mean, it's a very well-made film, so
Yeah.
would go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, his, directing chops are still very much prevalent in the film. Um, I believe he also wrote the film as well, or had hand in it, perhaps, like, in the screenplay, I'm not sure.
I think he had a hand in it,
Yeah.
because I know what's the name of the writer? I was just literally reading about this. Um, I think Spielberg was the main point of the story, but David Kep, I think is how you pronounce it. He was the main writer, and like he's had a lot of good, he's had a lot of okay. Like helped write the original Jurassic Park. He helped write the original Spider-Man, but he also helped write Jurassic World Rebirth and Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, the Dial of Destiny, which was the most
Mhm,
recent Indiana Jones. Like some good, some bad. So like he's worked with Spielberg a lot, um, but with the Spielberg work, like I think he helped write The Lost World, which was not great.
mhm.
It just kind of like ebbs and flows with him. So sometimes he's good, sometimes he's eh.
Yeah, the script wasn't bad, like, I think the pieces were there, it just kinda I think that they just kind of drew some things out that kinda took away from people being able to really sink their teeth into what was going on.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Sheep Detectives. This movie was another pleasant surprise for me um, in like I guess you could say like the kids films that I've seen this year. Like I guess it's more targeted towards kids, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. How about you?
As was I. Like I saw it and being marketed and I'm like, I don't know about this. And eventually, it came out and I saw it getting good reviews. I'm like, okay, let me go give it a shot. And then yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the it has like a relatively stacked cast. You delve deeper into even the voice acting cast. So yeah, it caught my interest. The same thing. Like I didn't watch it as soon as it came out. I heard great things about it, and I watched it, and I was like, still like, let's see how it is. But yeah, leaving the theater, I was like, wow, that was like pretty well done. Like had like great emotional beats. Like, yeah, really well done film, all in all. All right, let's get into the positives, which it sounds like you and I both have quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, I guess bottom line up front for me is so far to this point, this film for me has been the biggest surprise of the year because going in, I thought this could have been a ridiculous talking sheep movie, and then it somehow turned into something genuinely good. And I do think that surprise factor is part of this movie's charm. And overall, it's a very heartwarming, maybe even tear jerking movie because I do think this movie had way more emotional weight than people would expect, and what could have been a goofy gimmick does become something warm, sincere, and affecting. And with that, it had really clever writing, and I do think the writing is the key reason that the premise works because instead of relying only on sheep solving crimes as a joke, I thought the movie actually built a smart story around it, and with that, it delivers a really fantastic mystery. I mean, the mystery itself is genuinely engaging, and it unfolds in a way that keeps you guessing and makes you actively try to solve it. And I think that's a big win for any mystery comedy. There was really strong story development, and the movie doesn't just coast on its absurd premise. It develops the story carefully enough that both the emotional beats and the mystery beats both land. And I mean, overall, for me, like it overcame low expectations. Like this is the kind of movie that that won me over because I went in expecting something dumb, and I walked out shocked by how much it worked. And I mean, overall, like, it was a great theatrical experience.
Yeah, we're definitely in agreement on most of those points. The the emotional, I don't even want to say it's a gut punch, but like how I felt about this movie was almost like it had like the Pixar formula, but it was in live action. where, you always have like these animals or objects like toys or whatever that bring forth all this emotion that you never really were like thinking about. And I think that this movie does like a great job of even dealing with the themes of losing a loved one or losing somebody you care about. And, the all the sheep or everybody in the flock have like this thing where they're able to just forget all bad things that happen, like because it's a play on like, animals with their short memories or sheep with their short memories. But yeah, that aspect is interesting because as humans, as we deal with our own traumas or we deal with losing people, many people would just like to forget about that feeling. But, there is a little bit of context to it where it's like it is, even though it's painful, so much better to remember that, and their legacy and memories will go on with the people that are still living. And that's kind of interesting to say through like the lens of a child's movie. So I thought that that was maybe like my favorite part of it, that it actually had something very engaging and intelligent to say. Um, you already mentioned it. The comedy was actually very good. I think that all of the humans, as well as the voice actors with the sheep, like played very well within like the comedic timing, as well as the absurdity of things. Like basically throughout the town, the bumbling cop who I thought was like probably the funniest human. He's like basically the sheep are figuring out the whole thing, and they're just showing up in the town, and these sheep are like leaving books for him, like little like breadcrumbs for him to figure things out. And he's just like, how come the sheep are always here whenever I get these clues? So like it's meant to be like very silly, but like it doesn't make you feel like it's too over the top in that same sense. So I really enjoyed that. And yeah, you already mentioned it, the mystery itself, it's not, it kind of was like a light version of like a Knives Out type thing. You got like this whole cast of characters, they have all have like a bunch of motives. You introduce people that are close to Hugh Jackman's character, who's the person who was murdered. People around the town that like him, that dislike him. It just sets up this whole like community in this small town that makes for a really fun mystery. And yeah, I thought that this movie, like you said, like it surpassed expectations because I really had none going in. So it's definitely something I'd recommend that everybody watch, even if you have like kids, watch it with the family. It's just like a good time. So yeah, those are all my positives.
Yeah, totally agree.
And for negatives, I only have one. There was just one thing that like it's more of a nitpick. I felt as though like the sheep had their own relationships amongst themselves in the flock, and then they had like a bit of a narrative about what was it, winter sheep, like, and they kind of see them as kind of like outsiders, like winter sheep are seen as bad. And there's one winter sheep that ends up passing away, sacrificing himself. And I thought that that scene, while it still hit emotionally, they could have done a better job, I felt, with his relationship with some of the other sheep to make it hit a little bit more. I felt like it was a little bit rushed. I felt like we were getting into the beginning stages of their relationship starting to bloom, and him kind of coming out of his shell and giving the rest of the flock a chance because he's very, you know, brooding and off by himself. And he kind of, as the mystery starts unfolding, he starts helping and starts giving context to things. And right at the beginning of that is where I felt like they kind of just like pull the rug from under us rather than like giving it a little bit more time. So that's literally my only nitpick. Like it wasn't like it, was too jarring or anything, but I would have loved a little bit more of him coming along with the mystery, and then if they wanted to at the end doing that. So that's literally my only nitpick. Everything else I thought was really well done.
Yeah, it's funny, like, I have a couple negative points, but they're not even really related to the film, like, they're it's kinda, like, more oversight and, like, for those people who haven't seen it, like, go in expecting this, like, things like that, because for some people, like, I do think the premise may be a tough sell, because a talking sheep detective movie, like, it does sound silly on paper, and I fear that some people may write it off before giving it a chance. Um, so, definitely don't do that. But I do think the trailer also may have undersold it because if people think that the trailer made it look stupid, as I did, I do think that could hurt the movie's ability to find its audience and get people to go see it. But the actual film is much smarter and more heartfelt than the marketing suggests. And from a audience perspective, like depending on what kind of movies you enjoy or what you look for, you may feel some potential tonal risk from this movie because this movie does try to balance comedy, mystery, and genuine emotion, and it is tricky to do. I thought they delivered it excellently, and the movie pulled it off. But to some, depending on how critical you are, the premise is inherently fragile, and so depending on what you like, what you don't like, it may land, it may not. But again, yeah, not even really any nitpicks or critiques of the actual movie, just kind of things to watch out for, I guess.
Okay. What did you give the Sheep Detectives?
So I gave it an 8.6 out of 10, which for me is 4 stars, and it is currently at this moment sitting within my top 10 on the year.
Okay, yeah, we're once again in agreement. I also gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it is also in my top 10. It might be in my top five. I don't think it is, but it's up there.
It
So yeah,
is not in my top 5, but it is in the 10.
it's definitely worth the watch. I'm sure it will be out of theaters soon, but even when it comes on streaming, I highly recommend people watch it. It's a very good watch and very easy. Not doesn't The film doesn't overstay its welcome or anything. So I highly recommend this one.
Yeah, 100%.
Alrighty, anything else you wanted to touch on with Sheep Detectives?
Nope, I'm all good.
Alrighty, let's move on to the last film, which is The Drama. And this movie, up until Obsession came out, was my favorite movie. I really enjoyed this one. I do. I mean, at this point now, I think that because so long has it been since it's come out, that maybe people already kind of know the whole secret of what's going on in the movie. But when I went in, I knew nothing. I just knew that the premise was Zendaya and Robert Pattinson's characters are going to get married. Zendaya's character, something is found out about her, and then it kind of throws a wrench into everything. And that's it. And I think going into this movie, knowing only that will definitely heighten your experience. So I really love this one, but we'll get more into it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I went in with the same knowledge and understanding of this movie as you. I went in going to see it. I'm like, it's got Zendaya, it's got Robert Pattinson. It's done by A24. Like that's all I need. Like I will go see it. Um, I'm glad you kind of said, how you feel and felt about it, before Obsession, after Obsession. Uh, this movie still is my favorite of the year so far. Obsession is very, very good, but and I think I alluded to it when we did Project Hail Mary. The Drama is currently number one on my list, and that hasn't changed yet.
And I
Um,
don't fault you for that at all.
yeah, I mean and we'll get into the positives and everything. I do have a lot, um, but overall, fantastic film, and I wouldn't be shocked to see this kind of have a resurgence when it hits streaming because I don't know a ton of people personally who saw it. But if anybody ever came to me like, while it was in theaters, like asking, hey, what should I go see? This one was one I was heavily pushing. And they were like, well, it's like, it's a rom-com. I'm like, no, it is it's not a rom-com.
It really isn't.
It's like, it may market like it's a romance comedy type, but it has elements to that, but it is not that.
It's literally like what the title says. It's a drama.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's like change it up a little bit because I don't think you and I have many in this category. Let's just talk about the negatives quickly then before we go on to glazing the movie, basically.
Glazing. Okay. Yeah, I mean, from a negative standpoint, very very similar to kind of with Sheep Detectives, like nothing that really didn't work for me, but more, oversight things. The main thing I do want to call out is this movie will not be for everyone because as we'll touch on with the positives, the same absurdity you'll see in this movie that makes it work may push some viewers away. You know, if someone does not like cringe comedy or emotionally intense awkwardness, you know, this could be a tough sit. Um, the tonal balance that it takes is risky between blending drama, comedy, and cringe is extremely hard. Um, while the movie does pull it off overall for me, there may be moments where other viewers would feel unsure whether to laugh, wince, or just emotionally invest into it. And for some people, the discomfort may be overwhelming. This movie is designed to make you squirm, and for me, it worked in the best way possible. And that is a strength, but also a barrier depending on the viewer. But yeah, nothing, you know, critical as far as the film.
Okay, I only had 2 points. Mine is also kinda like what you were saying. It's more of the context of, like, the audience. Um, I think that this movie, like you said, like, it's not gonna be for everyone, and I think that the reveal or the secret of Zendaya's character, I've seen mixed reviews online. It all depends on your experience with what it is that she does or doesn't do. And I've seen people have different ways of looking at things because there is a political aspect to it in a way. So that is something to, think about going in, like, not saying that, like, you obviously know what it's gonna be going in, but I feel like some people might have a negative reaction or a positive reaction, which I'll get into. Is the great thing about this movie is that, honestly, the characters within the movie are playing out like how the critics are in the real world about it. Like, people are the things that people dislike about the movie or that it brings up certain points about is how the characters are reacting, which is great. Um, the only other nitpick I had was that there were certain times in the movie where I felt like it was like characters are self-sabotaging, which, like, leans into, like, how you said, like, in the theater, it's like tough to watch sometimes. But for instance, there is a situation between Zendaya's character and her maid of honor, and clearly it should have been that that maid of honor should not have been at the wedding at a certain point, and it just, like, continues to snowball and just turn into this big thing in the ending of the movie where I was like, surely within the context of everything, you would no longer invite that person to your wedding because you would know kind of what's going to happen, and lo and behold, something happens. So there were certain little things throughout the movie where I was like, like, the characters are doing very strange things, but not like to the detriment of the story or the plot or anything that really took me out of it. So those are the only two, like, little things I wanted to touch on in the negatives section of this. Um, so yeah, we'll move on to what we loved, and it sounds like both of us have a ton of that. I'll say, because mine, I'm just gonna kind of combine everything into like smaller chunks. Although I do have a few points. I want to say that I really enjoyed the chemistry between Zendaya and Robert Pattinson in this. I think that this movie, from what I've seen of Robert Pattinson, is him in a different role than what I've seen him in before. I want to say that, like, it might be my favorite role of his. That I feel like he's, the actual role itself is not something fun or over the top, but I feel like I can have the sense that he kind of let himself go in the role, and I think, like, I was seeing certain sides of him that was very interesting. Um, I thought that the commentary on the dynamic between the friendships, because there's a very, guess you can say, controversial scene where, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, and then the best man and the maid of honor sitting down wine testing, and then this is where they find out Zendaya's secret. All the other three share certain things about their past, and I think that, like, it just is a good commentary on people not really even seeing the things that they do, and they just shine like a spotlight. Especially one character shines a spotlight on, just attacking somebody for doing this and not understanding the context of stuff. So I thought that that was a very interesting dynamic throughout the whole film. I thought that the editing of the film was pretty unique in some parts. I thought the implementation of sound and the music, it has like points of comedy. Maybe if it's not meant to have comedy, like my theater, I was first of all in a packed theater, and there was one particular scene where they're going to a photo shoot. I'm sure you know the one I'm talking about, and the without trying to be funny, the photographer is saying certain things and the audience within the context of what you find out, it's very funny. And, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson's characters are obviously like uncomfortable, but so I think that the comedy within it can be funny as well. Um, I think that the characterizations, like I said, not just the acting chemistry, but the characterizations between Zendaya's character and Robert Pattinson's character, how it begins and how it ends, is a nice full circle. Like I felt like the film itself didn't have a section of lull or boring. It was kind of just go from the opening, which I really enjoyed, kept me really engaged. And the ending like is a little open ended. You can kind of like attach your own ending to it or narrative, however you think it's going to play out, which I also enjoyed. And what was my last point? Oh, the last point that I had was that I think that this is one of those movies similar to Obsession, which I give credit to a movie, is that when you have people that that see it, it's a real conversational movie. Like people will be talking about this movie, like, oh, what were your thoughts on this? What did you think of this part of it? So it's one of those movies that I feel like even after months of it being out, even today, I still discuss it with my friends and people will still bring things up about it. So yeah, those are all like basically in a nutshell what my positives were. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, this movie is very much a, discussion like what would you do in this situation type film. Um, as a whole, like I think this movie is a masterful blend of, drama, cringe, and comedy. Like I think the most impressive thing is how well the movie balanced tones that should be almost impossible to combine because it can make you laugh, squirm, and feel this emotional intensity all at once. And I think that threading of the needle is the movie's biggest flex. But Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, they are operating at the top of the industry. Like as the two leads, they are fully locked in. Like Zendaya and Pattinson, they really bring the kind of star power and acting control that's really needed for a story this uncomfortable and absurd. And I think if you have a movie that depends on tension, awkwardness, emotional volatility, like those two are exactly the kind of performers who can sell it. And Alana Haim, who plays Zendaya's maid of honor, I think she also deserves support and recognition as she was a standout in this one. And in a movie with major stars, I think her being singled out not only by me, but also, the critics, the reviewers and everything, like, I think being singled out for that supporting recognition, says a lot, and she really adds another strong, albeit different, layer to an already performance-driven movie, and, yeah, I mean, this movie keeps you uncomfortable in the best way, at least for me, because it makes you wince at every twist and turn, but I think that discomfort is part of its appeal, and it's the kind of story where you are laughing and cringing at the same time. And the absurdity of the movie is the hook. And as I said, it will probably turn some people off, but I think the weirdness and intensity behind the situations that you see play out in the movie are also what make it special. And the movie commits to its own uncomfortable rhythm, and that commitment behind it pulls you in. And I think last shout out I will give is to A24's marketing team behind this because, massive credit to the trailers for not giving the movie away. Um, and, smart marketing matters, especially for a film where surprise, tone, discomfort, all those things are central to the experience. Because, as you and I said, like we went in knowing very little. We know who was in it. We got the basic premise, but we didn't know everything surrounding it. And then, oh boy, when you sit down, it's just a whole can of worms opening up.
Yeah, I think that after I described it, like I reviewed it saying that it's like watching a car crash on I-4. It really like it starts off very like simple and then like one thing leads to another and this character does this questionable thing and you're just sitting there like you said like everybody in the theater is like kind of like it's almost like a horror movie in a way where you're just like oh like I don't know it's just very awkward to watch and Yeah, just very well done
Well,
film.
it's like that scene where they're all wine tasting for
Mhm.
the wedding, like, that's when shit hits the fan and you're like, "Oh, like, the movie's here's what it is, here's what's going on," and yeah, it snowballs and rolls its way up through there.
Yeah, and also I promise you, you're just never gonna guess what Zendaya's character like, it's one of those things where I was trying to guess within the context of, like, a marriage, like, oh, she did something weird with, like, a previous boyfriend or what you're just never gonna guess what it was. Like, it's just something that, like, when you go in, like, when she revealed it, I was like, "Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay." And then the movie, like, it's just so it hinges on this thing that she's done or, as I said, didn't do, but, yeah, you'll find out more about that when you watch it. But if you haven't seen it already, I think both of us would say that we highly recommend it. I mean, it is his favorite movie of the year thus far. So,
Thus
um,
far.
yeah.
We'll
So,
see if that gets overtaken.
yeah, by the Odyssey, I imagine. Next month we'll see, or
We'll
Dune,
see.
maybe,
Or yeah.
or Supergirl. Who's to say? But yeah, what did you give the drama?
So as it stands, I gave it a 9.1 out of 10, which is atop my list of movies for this year and is also the only one in the nines. So, granted, you know, hot market prediction, I do think something will jump it, but I mean, we're almost at July and that's
Mhm.
the only movie I have in the nines. So we'll see what comes along. But yeah, 9.1 out of 10 for me. Also 4.5 stars.
Yep, same thing with me. 4.5 out of 5 for me. Yeah, I think that this movie really will stand the test of time as well. Like, I feel like once you've watched it, knowing the context of what's going on in it, it's not the most rewatchable film. It's not going to be one of those that you're going to revisit every year. But people will look back on it 5, 10 years from now, and I think we'll give it the flowers that it deserves. 'Cause I feel like you know, it got good word of mouth and people raving about it. But I feel like things were mixed because of the things that Zendaya's character did or didn't do. So I think that this could be a cult classic in the future, and hopefully it becomes one. So yeah, I think that this movie should be held in high regard. It is right now number 2 in my list of the year.
Very fair.
Anything else you want to touch on in the drama?
No, I'm all good. Just make sure you're buckled for some drama.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well then that will do it for this episode. Thank you once again for listening, and we will catch you guys in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.